Georgia Chenevix-Trench. I'm a distinguished scientist at the Queensland Institute of Medical Research, otherwise known as QIMR-Berghofer in Brisbane, Australia. Well, I went to school and university in Dublin, and then I knew I wanted to do genetics, but at that time there really was none in Ireland, so I went to the US to do my PhD at the Medical College of Virginia. And then I met an Australian, and we moved to Brisbane in 1986, where we've both been at the same institute ever since. And I began by working on a rare inherited form of skin cancer. And then I started moving into the breast cancer field in about 1995, and that really took off at about that time when we had identified, or not we, because Australians weren't involved, but when the first breast cancer predisposition genes were identified. And that was the sort of starting point to turn most of my research into breast cancer research at that time. We've been involved in what are called genome-wide association studies for breast cancer for almost 20 years. And in that we've collected through two very large international consortia literally hundreds of thousands of cases and controls with and without breast cancer. And we've used that to find genetic regions that are associated with breast cancer risk and also that can modify the effect of having a penetrant mutation. So that's been extremely successful. We found about 250 such regions in the genome. The real challenge is trying to work out how those genetic variants are working, what cells they're impacting in, what mechanisms they're impacting on, and how they contribute to breast cancer risk. And so recently, that's really been the main focus of our attention. In the early days, we used to look at one region at a time, and then when we got to 230, we realized that wasn't possible anymore. So we're now doing what are called functional screens to look at all the genes in these regions and to see how and which of them might impact on some of the characteristics that will determine breast cancer. And in particular, we're interested in genes that might impact on the immune system and that might make cells resistant to killing from immune cells. Well, I've had continual NH and MRC funding for as long as I can remember, for probably 35 years, but we've also had a lot of money along the way from the US Department of Defense, from the National Breast Cancer Foundation in Australia, sometimes from the Susan Komen Foundation in the US, but really continual funding from NH and MRC has been my major source of funding. Well, it's twofold. Firstly, you don't have to look very far to be motivated by a need to do something about breast cancer. It's absolutely everywhere. The daughter of a friend of ours died recently in her early 30s with two very small children. So for a disease as common as this, the passion is very much in front of your eyes. But then it's just really fascinating to try and understand how these normal cells, sometimes with an inherited component and sometimes without, can turn into a breast cancer, and then find ways of trying to outsmart it, either to prevent or to treat it. So it's intellectually fascinating, but the motivation is just constant. We all know people who've died of breast cancer, only too many. Well, I have daughters, I have grandchildren, and I have 2 gardens. And I do a lot of gardening, a lot of travel, a lot of music. The chamber music in Brisbane is fantastic. I go to a lot of concerts, I go to the ballet, but mostly my husband and I love gardening.